Welcome to the drum set, everybody. I hope you're having a great day. I'm really excited if you're just beginning your journey as a drummer, or if you've already been a drummer and you're just kind of refreshing yourself on some of the fundamentals. Let's get into it. So welcome to the drum set. They're pretty much all going to look basically like this. A little bit different arrangement, a little bit different sizes of the drums, different array or collection of cymbals, but they're all going to be basically along these lines of kick drum, snare drum, hi-hat, tom-tom, floor tom, cymbals. Alright, in most styles of music, your kick drum or bass drum, that's the same thing, is going to be the downbeat of the drum beat, or the heartbeat, you know, it's really the oomph of it. Helps if you make that face. And then snare drum is the backbeat, and that's kind of like the response to the downbeat of the kick drum. Again, it helps if you make faces. Most styles of music will have a drum beat similar to that pattern. There will be different variations of the placement of the notes, but it will be something along the lines of the bass drum providing the heartbeat, the snare drum providing the backbeat. Then you have the hi-hat. The hi-hat is going to drive the beat and give it a specific feel depending on how you play it. It can also be used as a timekeeper. If you're driving the beat with your ride cymbal like this, keep time with your hi-hat. You can do that with quarter notes, eighth notes, half notes, whatever. Just something to complement what you're driving over here. It's going to be hard to do at first, but once you get that down, it's going to make doing everything else easier because you have this to fall back on as your metronome. So work on that. It's tough, but once you get it down, it's going to really help you out. So like I said, the ride cymbal is another way to drive the beat. You can also crash with it and play the bell. Like this. Your other cymbal is generally just going to be to crash. You can also ride with it too, though. Make sure to practice crashing with your left hand as well as your right. You don't want to get stuck only being able to crash with your right hand. Even if you're right hand dominant, practice doing that stuff with your left hand too. Eventually, it'll become easier. I promise. You want to try and be as ambidextrous as possible. See what I mean? Alright, so tom-toms are these guys. They make fun sounds. Different drum sets will have different number of tom-toms. This is traditionally the most common, which is a 4-piece drum set. You don't count the cymbals when you're counting that. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. So the most traditional setup is snare drum, rack tom, floor tom. So a lot of drum sets are going to have 2 rack toms. Mine doesn't. I just dig this kind of simple setup. The rack tom isn't used for much other than fills, honestly. You can do little accents with it, and you can have fun with it for sure, but it's really not necessary. That's why you see a lot of guys out there, and ladies, removing their rack tom and just having a snare tom, floor tom, three-piece setup. That works really great. So then you're playing kind of like this. That's really cool. I like the rack tom. I mean, it's take it if you like it, play it. If you don't, get it out of there. You know, whatever you're feeling. Floor tom. Floor tom is really useful, I think. Other than being an element of fills, you can write it to create like a dark, moody feel for a part of a song. So that's kind of cool. Oh, and builds. Classic rock build or any genre build. So that's just a quick breakdown of what you do with all the different components of the drum set. Before we get too deep into any kind of techniques or anything like that, just have some fun with the drum set. Just get to know it, let it get to know you. Just make some noise. Always wear ear protection. Whether you have a set of noise canceling or isolating headphones like these, or earplugs, or in-ear monitors, always wear ear protection. I'm fucking serious about that. Always wear ear protection. So now, have some fun. If you want to get really good, it's going to take hours of smart, intelligent practicing. So first, you need to build that passion platform. You need to really fall in love with this thing, so that you have so that you're inspired to actually put in those hours of practice. So make sure to have fun with it. Make sure to love this instrument and just get loose and get wild with it sometimes. Even when you're in the middle of practicing some really regimented stuff, make sure to take time to have fun and get wild with this. Like, it's a really primal instrument, so have some fucking fun with it. Alright, let's learn a drum beat. We're gonna do what I think most drummers learn for their very first drum beat. I don't really think that's a problem that most drummers learn the same first beat. It's a great beat. It's the foundation for all other beats, basically, and that beat by itself is used as the drum beat for many chart-topping songs. It's this beat. Alright, it's very simple. We're going to play eighth notes on the hi-hat, counting it like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 3 on the kick drum. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and those two together. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 2 and 4 on the snare drum. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Just the hi-hat and snare drum. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Bass drum and snare drum. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. All three together. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. If putting it all together is kind of tricky for you, try playing it slower. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 So just spend some time working on this and trying to make it feel good. Try to make it feel consistent and flowy. You don't want it to feel too lurchy. You want it to feel like you want to be able to bob your head to it, basically, like this. I'll just add one possible variation for now, because this is kind of the introductory beat. I don't want to get too complicated, but we'll give you one additional note to add to it, which will give it a different feel. We'll do a second bass drum note. So instead of just the 1 and 3 on the bass drum, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and we're going to do the 1, the 3, and the 3 and. So it'll be 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. All together, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. If you feel like you have that locked in pretty tight, we can now add a fill to it. We're going to start on the 3 of the measure with 4 hits on the snare, 2 on the rack tom, 2 on the floor tom, and then crashing back on the 1 with a cymbal and your kick drum. The fill by itself will look like this. 3 and 4 E and 3 E and 4 E and Notice my counting changed a little bit. That's because those are 16th notes, and the way we count 16th notes is 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a, 4 E and a. 4, I counted to 4 times. 4 times 4 is 16. That's what makes them 16th notes. So starting on the 3 of the beat, 3 E and a, 4 E and a, 1, 3 E and a, 4 E and a. I'll now play it in the beat for you. 1, 2, 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3. If that was a little too tough, try it just on the snare drum. That's a good place to start. 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and. Another thing I want to bring up real quick is don't get in the habit of always crashing at the end of your fills. You definitely should sometimes. Like a big exclamation mark at the end of a phrase, and it really helps transition to the next phrase, but there's a time and a place for it. Sometimes you just want to jump right back into the beat. So maybe every other time, don't crash, but go right back to the beat. So 1 on the hi-hat, like you didn't even leave. It's kind of a slick, chill way to do a fill, is just slide right back into the beat like you didn't even, like it wasn't even no thing, you know. Doing a big crash is like a caveman move, and it's cool, but sometimes you just want to be cool and you want to slide right back into the beat, like this. So it's a kind of a time and a place thing. There's a time and a place for everything. You know, sometimes you want to do lots of big crashes. Sometimes you want to play it at a low dynamic with no crashes. When to do which, that depends on the type of music you're playing with, or if you're playing by yourself, the type of feel you're trying to express. So work on that stuff and keep an eye out for my next video, which is going to be all about dynamics and feel. That'll be about knowing what volume to play at and how to find the right feel for the music you're playing with. Thank you guys. Happy drumming.